Welcome to Many a Day. Today we're going to be looking at how you can take an aerosol can and turn it into a club chair. This can work for your 1:12 ratio dollhouse as well as the larger ones like a Barbie house. And I'll show you today how we did that. Here's some pictures of the caps and how they're what they look like after they're removed from the can. And then I'm going to have a short video to show you how we actually took the caps off. And now you can see the parts of the cap, including the trigger, to show you all the different pieces and what we did with them. All right, thanks to our wonderful neighbors and friends. They have donated empty Febreeze and a pledge container. I had seen a video, and I apologize to the person who created this. I cannot find it again, but it's a great concept. More for your 1/6 dollhouse, like the Barbie type dollhouse. What you do is you take this top off the can, and this becomes the base to your chair. So you could have a dining chair in your house. Pretty modern concept. So I'm going to show you how to do it, and I am learning as we go along, as I always say. So I'm going to pull this off. Pretty easy. Then you have what will be the seat. But if you sit this down, it rocks. So what I'm going to do is take off the this tab and the base. And it takes a little muscle, but I found if you push and pull, it'll eventually come off. And it helps if you have a little strength, but something I don't have much of. And it pops off, and that's okay. Now, if you try to put it back on, you can, but it's still going to rock. So I'm going to put a cardstock base to it and see how that goes. So this is if you want to put this back in, you can, but you would have to glue it. So I'm just going to cover the hole. So stay tuned for the rest. The next thing we're going to do, I'm going to paint them all white because then I can do colorful seats, and you can always change your design for your seats. If you paint these, you could do like a wonderful purple and leave it that way. My one granddaughter loves purple. I might do that for her since I have so many, but I personally like to have a base color and then just change the decorations around it. All right, headed to the paint section. So here are the different caps, all the different colors in one of the boxes, and I use Krylon Color Master because it's paint and primer. And you can see just another picture of the caps. All right, we're going to be painting outside. It's good to have a well-ventilated area. I like to keep things in a box if I can. It keeps them stationary, keeps the wind from blowing on them and blowing things, especially if I have it in the backyard with grass or sand. I have too many to paint at one time, so I'm going to do this batch first, and we'll go from there. And with paint, I've always found it's good to do a light coat. If you do a heavy coat, then you can have drips and runs. And you use a swirling motion. Let's see if I can videotape while I do it. So I'm going to go ahead and paint the bases and a little pledge one. I think the pledge could become a chair that has a base that has like a barber chair, where it can lift can't think of the word. So you just take and if you need to wear a mask, depending on which way the wind is blowing. Like I said, it needs to be well ventilated. This is a hot, sunny day. So. I've also found when you paint outside, little bugs like to come and land on the paint, but if I have them in the box, it keeps them a little more secure. And I'm going to let that dry and come back later. So this is the first coat of painting after it's dried. I think it said like 20 minutes to check and see, how dry it is. It depends on temperature, humidity, wind flow, etc. But then you'll see the multiple. I think I ended up painting it about 4 times before we got through. Obviously, the darker the color, the longer it took. And you don't have to paint the deep inside because that's going to be covered up on the bottom. It just shows you the caps and that was could be a base, and we'll talk about how that really wouldn't work out. So luckily I had a nice box and a nice sunny day, and multiple paintings, sprays. I use thin coats because I just want to make sure it covers evenly without any streaking or dripping. So the next step is to create a cardstock base and figure out what to do with that opening where the trigger was, and make a seat cushion. So first thing I figured was I would go ahead and make a pattern traced around the base and the top of the Febreeze and Pledge tops, and so that I would have a pattern to follow. And I just used scrap paper and a pencil. Very easy. Some of this you could have children help you with. Others you definitely need to supervise because of the tools we've used or the type of glue. And you can see I just quickly drew a type of a rectangle to match that opening. And so cut out all my cardstock pieces. You could use the Cricut, but I did not at this time, but it would be a nice easy way to do it. Then you have to pull out all the little pieces that are sticking out, because it won't be flush until you get all those little pieces. And we tried needle nose pliers, and my husband's twisted and twisted and twisted trying to get those off. Just thought I'd show you the different tools we used. It can come off, but it took some effort. Next, he used wire cutters to try to break it up, loosen it, and kind of went back and forth to get them all out. And it eventually came, but they were pretty tough. So, well manufactured, shall we say. Not really meant for dollhouse furniture, but we repurposed them. Then the next thing you'll see is we're trying to figure out if we can take that trigger handle and cut it so that it can be part of the inside. What we found was it's pretty lightweight, and thought if we added something like beads or beans or something to the base, but have it in an enclosed setting so it'd be protected. Our goal is to make sure it's safe. And so we used a hacksaw to get started to actually start the cut through the surface. And some of you might say, well, he could have used a vise. That's true, but we don't have a workshop, so we're doing the best we can, and he was able to actually get through and start the cut, and then we could actually work on it with scissors. I say we, he did the lion's share of this because he has the knowledge and the strength. It's always good to have a partner to help you with these things, and it's pretty sturdy stuff. So as you'll see, we went from scissors to wire cutters, and just make sure they're nice and sharp, and just use safety precautions because you don't want to get injured. And eventually it cut right through, and then you could finish it off with a hacksaw to get the clean cut. This is what it looks like after you've trimmed it, and hopefully you'll have a little easier time than we did. But we just thought we'd show you all that we went through, and then if you do choose to do this, you'll have some idea of some of the challenges and the successes. Then he trimmed it up so it would fit neatly inside the base of the cap, because again, we're trying to add some weight to the bottom of it. So it's not intuitive for me, but it was for him. So you can see where he's trying to put it inside to see how it's going to hold the beans. We chose to use beans for this, and have it just fit neatly inside there. Hope the pictures are giving you a good idea of what we were doing. So the next thing is to show you the supplies we use: hot glue, Aleene's tacky glue, and polyfill, premium polyester fiber fill to put inside these caps. And I have a little video walking you through what we did to cover up that front part where the toggle trigger was. Just putting some hot glue and then the polyfill fiber fill, and then I'm going to put a little more hot glue on it and try to glue this rectangular somewhat rectangular piece. Well, hopefully better than that. And push it together. And then the goal, be careful, it's hot. Why they name it hot glue. So there you are. And then I'm going to try to hot glue it inside here. We'll see how that works. I'm going to do inside the chair first. If that doesn't work, then we'll scrape it out and try another plan. And then you're just going to take your fingers and press, clean up as you go along, and see how good my paint job was. I might try Elmer's on the next one to see, or a liquid glue instead of a hot glue. See how that goes. I'm going to give it a little poof. That's why we put the polyfill. You could take a cotton ball and wrap it up like we did with some of the other projects. Our main goal is to keep it secure so it doesn't get torn apart. Looks like that will work. All right. Now the next thing we're going to do is put the other piece that my technical advisor was so kind to cut for me. And what we want to do, if you remember, this is the same piece, but the, let's see if I can show it to you the right way. That's what this is. And you'll see this part has been cut off. Our hope is that we can, if I can remember how to do it right, put it in there, fill it with, I'm going to try pinto beans, and then I'm going to glue it and tape it. And you could do rocks. I have some rocks here. But what I'm thinking is, if small children are around, you don't want anything that they can take apart and ingest. So we're going to try to fill it with the pinto beans, or you could do rice, and wrap it all up so that it's one compartment by itself, and then glue it in place. And the purpose of that is so that it will sit heavier in the front so it won't tip, because right now it wants to tip when you put the base on it. All right, give us a few minutes, we'll be back. To make sure we've covered all the bases, we've literally hot glued that open hole and put the polyfill in there, and I just used the eraser of a pencil to push it through so that the entire base would be encapsulated with glue and other items. And you can see where the trigger handle that we cut, we needed to make sure we could put things in it, like the beans, and put tape over it so that it was nice and secure, and then hot glued it inside the base of the Febreeze cap. He carefully added the beads one by one, and then put tape over that opening and secured it in place. Made sure there were no opening, no holes in it. Made sure it fit inside the base of this Febreeze cap. You can see that rectangle opening on the right side of the screen, just to show you. So once he had it totally sealed with the tape and made sure it fit nice and smooth so that we could actually put a base cap, which was the cardstock oval shape that we cut out, and then he hot glued it all in place, and just to make sure we didn't have any opening or potential for someone to get in there. Our next goal was to make sure that we had created a base that would be sealed and secured to cover the beans, but also to give a nice finish to the base of this seat. That was the Febreeze cap. There are little indentations in the top, as you can see, and you have to cut a hole in your cardstock to make that work. So it's not a perfect oval, but it was as close as we could make it. And again, you could use vinyl with Cricut. You could cut out with cardstock with your Cricut. I just found it was easier to just trace and cut out. And then we use the Aleene's tacky glue, the fast drying tacky glue, to glue the cardstock in place, and just make sure it was a nice bead all the way around, because there's a ridge inside there, so the cardstock fitted nicely, almost as if it was made for it. So that was a nice bonus. And then you just have some pictures here of the cardstock. And again, you could paint it, you could add decorations, stencils, a variety of things. We just wanted to try the base one and go from there. And here you can see all the polyfill inside. And the other thing we found, actually, we didn't need to use the beans after all. After all that, it's sturdy enough to sit. So you could just put polyfill in it and close up the front like I did with the fabric, and put the cardstock glued on the base, and you're done. But I wanted to show you the two options in case you wanted it a little heavier. And then you'll see I used a cap from a plastic container to cut out the shape for the cushion. If you want an oval cushion, you would do that. If you want a circular cushion, trace around the top of where the seat's going to be, which is a kind of an oval, and just make it larger. And then baste stitch, which is a very long stitch. I just used needle and thread and went around and basted it, and you'll see those are very long stitches. It almost looks like a shower cap when you get through. And pull it up and make sure it fits the way you like. Use 1 3/4 inches of polyfill to fill it in. This is going to be the cushion that goes inside the seat. And then put the polyfill inside, and then just start stitching a small stitch. What I did was I ran around with the thread on the needle, stitched around, and then I crisscrossed over the top, so I had a nice tight seal in this cushion. And there's just a few pictures just to show you how small it is, what it looks like. Again, I put things in to test it out, make sure it's what I want, and see if I like it, and then I can think about gluing it. So that's the inside, where you have that bubble of polyfill that was glued to the base. And then I go about gluing these cushions in the seat. If you don't want to do that, you don't have to. I just figure with little ones, if I glue it in, better chance that it's going to stay in the seat than if I just let it be free. It depends on the age and what you want. And the colors I chose are for our granddaughter's dollhouse. One likes pink and one likes purple, so I thought this was a good compromise. But I'm going to show you how it works nicely in a traditional 1/12 scale model dollhouse, like our Real Good Toys Beachside Bungalow. And you can use it for a variety of things. You can use it for chairs in a bedroom, for instance. Again, it doesn't match our color scheme, but you can see how it works. And then you have bar stools. So just thought you'd enjoy. Hope you'll come back.